Welcome to Gen 1 Rev 22 Ministries on Friday the 27th of March 2020. Today I'm going to be asking the question, and hopefully we shall find the answer, that the disciples asked one another concerning who Jesus Christ was. The question they asked him was, "Who then is this that he commands even winds and water, and they obey him?" The disciples were with Jesus Christ on a boat, and they were in the middle of the Sea of Galilee, and a storm arose. And we read of the account of the storm in three of the Gospels, Matthew, Mark and Luke. It seems that they're all speaking of the same event, and I shall read the account from the Gospel of Luke, Luke chapter 8 verses 22 to 25. One day he got into a boat with his disciples, and he said to them, "Let us go across to the other side of the lake." So they set out, and as they sailed he fell asleep. And a windstorm came down on the lake, and they were filling with water and were in danger. And they went and woke him, saying, "Master, Master, we are perishing." And he awoke and rebuked the wind and the raging waves, and they ceased, and there was a calm. And he said to them, "Where is your faith?" And they were afraid. And they marvelled, saying to one another, "Who then is this, that he commands even winds and water, and they obey him?" So we've got the account there in the Gospel of Luke, and in Luke's account here we have Jesus Christ and the disciples getting into a boat, and they're going to cross the lake, and Jesus Christ fell asleep. So Jesus Christ was asleep in the boat, and his disciples were still awake, and a storm arose on the lake, and obviously the disciples were worried about it. Now these are fishermen, so they would be used to being on a lake that was sometimes susceptible to storms, but obviously it seems that this storm had troubled them. So they decided to wake up Jesus Christ by shouting, "Master, Master, we are perishing." And he awoke and rebuked the wind, and it was calm. The sea became calm. So then he asked them, "Where's your faith?" And they were very afraid. And the question they asked, "Who then is this, that he commands even winds and water, and they obey him?" So we've also got to ask that question. Who is it that can calm the winds and the waves? Now, a normal person, normal man, woman, child, if we were to ask the wind and the waves to be calm, then I don't think they're going to take any notice of us. Well, I believe we can answer that question if we go back to the Old Testament. Now the Old Testament was written before Jesus Christ became a man, before God became flesh in Jesus Christ and took on human flesh. And the Old Testament gives us answers to who can calm storms and calm the seas. Now if we look in the book of Psalms, now the book of Psalms is the longest book in the entire Bible. It contains 150 chapters. Now the book of Psalms was written between 1500 BC and 500 BC, so it spanned 1000 years. There were different contributors to the book of Psalms, and they were King David, King Solomon, Moses, Asaph, Heman, Ethan, and there were some psalms we don't know who the authors are, and they remain anonymous. So the word psalms in the Greek is psalmos, and it translates to Hebrew mizmor, meaning song. And if we look at the actual Hebrew name for psalms, it's telahim, and that means praises. So if we put those together, it means the songs of praises. So psalms were singing praises to God, the creator of heaven and earth. So we need to look at who the psalms are addressed to, who the psalms are talking about, singing about, giving praise to, giving worship to. And we see that the psalms are giving praises, like I said, to the creator of heaven and earth, to God, to Elohim. He is the one who the writers of the psalms are proclaiming those psalms and songs to, and through those psalms they're worshipping God. So they address God and his creative works and all the things that he has done and that he is doing. Psalm 89 verses 9, we read in verse 1, we read that the writer of the psalm says, I will sing of the mercies of the Lord forever, with my mouth will I make known thy faithfulness to all generations. So it's clearly addressed to God, so it's speaking to God, and he's talking about God. And also the psalmist proclaims, thou rulest the raging of the sea, when the waves thereof arise, thou stillest them. So we've got clearly the psalmist saying of God that you rule the raging of the sea and the waves, and when they arise, and you're the one who can still them. We also read in Psalm 107:29, in verse 1 we read the psalmist giving thanks to God. He says, oh, give thanks unto the Lord, for he is good, for his mercy endureth forever. So it's addressed to God. It's not addressed to anyone else, it's addressed to God. So everything the psalmist is speaking about, proclaiming and singing about and worshipping to is the creator of heaven and earth. And we read in Psalm 107:29, we read, he maketh the storm a calm, so that the waves thereof are still. We also read in Psalm 127, same psalm, I shall read from 25 to 30, for he commandeth and raiseth the stormy wind, which lifteth up the waves thereof. They mount up to the heaven, they go down again to the depths, their soul is melted because of trouble. They reel to and fro and stagger like a drunken man, and are at their wits' end. Then they cry unto the Lord in their trouble, and he bringeth them out of their distresses. He maketh the storm a calm, so that the waves thereof are still. Then are they glad, because they be quiet, so he bringeth them unto their desired haven. So there we've not only got God calming the storm, being described as one who calms the storm and the waves, we've also got God making people glad because he's calmed the storm and he brings them unto their desired haven. Now we can look at that and compare that with what happened in the boat on the lake that Luke records. Jesus Christ clearly was making reference to what was written about him in the Psalms. When he calmed the storm, he calmed the waters, he stopped the rain. And once he had done that, the disciples were quiet, they were calm like the sea and the waves. Jesus Christ was fulfilling these words by the psalmist in that very boat. He calmed the storm, he calmed the waves, and he calmed the disciples. And then once he'd calmed the wave and calmed the disciples, they then went on to their destination, which clearly says here, then are they glad, because they be quiet, so he bringeth them unto their desired haven. So we have what the psalmist spoke about and was worshipping God with those words and that song. Jesus Christ doing, as I've said, in that boat on the lake with the disciples. So we're beginning to get the picture now who this is. We also read in Psalm 65 verse 7. So I'll read verse 1 again. It's a psalm and a song of David, and he's praising God, saying, praise waiteth for thee, O God, in Zion, and unto thee shall the vow be performed. So it's addressed to God again. Verse 1 clearly states it's addressed to God. And in verse 7 we have, speaking about God, God which stilleth the noise of the seas, the noise of their waves, and the tumult of the people. Again, in the Psalms, God is the one who calms the seas, who calms the waves. So we clearly see there that it is God who is the one who calms the seas, the wind, and we see also that Jesus Christ in the boat calmed the waves and the sea. But I'd just like to digress just a little bit away from that now, but it's something similar we read in the Gospel of John. So the disciples were in the boat alone, rowing back across the lake, and a storm arose, and they saw Jesus Christ walking towards them in the middle of the night on the water. This is the old saying, walking on the water. Well, this is the account of Jesus Christ walking on the water towards the disciples who were in the boat rowing back to shore. And we read it in John chapter 6 verses 1. When evening came, his disciples went down to the sea, got into a boat, and started across the sea to Capernaum. It was now dark, and Jesus had not yet come to them. The sea became rough because a strong wind was blowing. When they had rowed about 3 or 4 miles, they saw Jesus walking on the sea and coming near the boat, and they were frightened. But he said to them, "It is I, do not be afraid." Then they were glad to take him into the boat, and immediately the boat was at the land to which they were going. So we've got something similar there. The disciples in a boat rowing back to Capernaum. A storm's developed. Jesus Christ didn't get in the boat with them. The storm's developed, and in the middle of the night they're concerned about the storm, and the next thing they see is Jesus Christ walking towards them on the water and gets into the boat. And the amazing thing is, it clearly states that immediately the boat was at the land to which they were going. So again, we've got to ask the question, who walks on the water? Who is this that walks on water? And if we go back again to the Old Testament, we have in the book of Job, chapter 9, verse 8, and Job is speaking of God which alone spreadeth out the heavens and treadeth upon the waves of the sea. I'll say that again, and treadeth upon the waves of the sea. So again, we have Jesus Christ walking on the water as a demonstration to the disciples in the boat saying, I'm walking on the water. Who is it that walks on the water? And if we look at the Old Testament, if the disciples had known or recalled what says in the book of Job, they'd have known, hang on, this is God walking on the water, because it's only God that treadeth upon the waters, and Jesus Christ is demonstrating to them who he is from the Old Testament, and it's for them to connect the dots. So therefore we have Jesus Christ walking on the water. In the Old Testament, it's God who treadeth on the waters. We also have Jesus Christ calming the storm. In the Old Testament, it's God who calms the storm. So therefore, the answer to the question is, it's God. Jesus Christ is God. He is creator of heaven and earth and all of the universe, all of the biological living life forms on this planet. He created all things, and he's demonstrated that to his disciples I'll say again, by calming the storm, calming the sea, walking on the water. Another scripture I'd like to draw your attention to is Genesis chapter 1, 9 and 10. And God said, let the waters under the heaven be gathered together unto one place, and let the dry land appear. And it was so. And God called the dry land earth, and the gathering together of the waters called the seas. And God saw that it was good. So God here, and God said, let the waters under heaven be gathered together unto one place. So it's God speaking, just like Jesus Christ spoke and told the wind and the storm to stop and the rain to stop. So we see the connection there. Also in creation week, God speaking, Jesus Christ speaking, Jesus Christ commanding the waters, commanding all the waters to come together in one place. He commanded the waters on the boat with the disciples to be still, the rain to stop. He commanded the storm to stop. He walked on the waters. If he created the waters, then he has control over them, dominion over them. He can set aside the natural laws if he created the natural laws and all matter that is in the universe. If he created them, then he's got control over them. He's not subject to them. Yes, he became subject to them when he became a man voluntarily, but that does not mean as God he is subject to them. He has control over them, as can be demonstrated in Genesis chapter 1 verses 9 to 10. So if we go to John 1, 1 to 5, now this is the Apostle John who wrote the Gospel of John, who walked with Jesus Christ. He also wrote the the book of Revelation and 1 John, 2 John and 3 John, which are also in the New Testament. Now he is describing who Jesus Christ is. He describes Jesus Christ as the Word. Coming back to the Word spoke. Jesus commanded the storm to be still. He spoke it. Jesus in creation spoke the water, the separations of the waters and the land. He spoke everything in creation week into being. And John is describing Jesus Christ as the Word. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. The same was in the beginning with God. All things were made by him, and without him was not anything made that was made. In him was life, and the life was the light of men. And the light shineth in darkness, and the darkness comprehended it not. So we have there Jesus Christ clearly being described as the Word, the spoken Word, who created. God is the creator of heaven and earth and the universe. Jesus Christ, if he created the heavens and the earth and all biological living life forms, then it stands to obvious reason that he is God. And that's precisely what he was demonstrating in the boat to his disciples on those two occasions. So, in answer to this question, who then is this? Therefore, the disciples question, who then is this that he commands even winds and water and they obey him? The answer is God, creator of heaven and earth. So if Jesus Christ is God, that means we need to listen to what he says. John chapter 14 verse 6, Jesus Christ speaking. Jesus said unto him, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man cometh to the Father but by me. Gen 1 Rev 22 Ministries. Thank you. Until next time.